So, um, it's interesting. Like from the last few videos I've been watching, the grapevines, it's real telling, and I mean, it's not that deep, but it's real interesting dialogue. This is what young black educated folks wrong. It's funny how like black folks will quickly say black conservative, black Republican, or whitewash they've assimilated to the culture and things of that nature. But if you listen to the dialogue from starting from even their video about our trans women, the video they did about Chipamanda, like it's like you got all these melanated black folks in this room having conversations, educated and whatnot, and different diasporas of blackness. You got first generation Nigerians, and I think Carl's Haitian and whatnot. You got black Americans in there too. I'm like, the irony is they sound like a bunch of fucking white Europeans. Like for people who hate patriarchy and things that are Eurocentric, they love all the matriarchy and they love the role reversal and they love all this, otherness and changing genders and shit. Like, I doubt that in Africa and Kenya right now they're having conversations on, well, do you think that women who pretend to be men are actually men? Like, that's not African shit. Like, that's some stuff that's only facilitated here in America. But I hadn't even watched the video at the time. I said I saved it for the gym. I watched it last night at the gym, or listened to it rather. But one a Facebook friend, I don't know if I put him onto their videos or not, but he's been intrigued by their videos, been talking about it a lot, and he had posted this stat in regards to this particular video. Are black men afraid to speak their mind in fear of being called a name? I watched the Grapevine recent debate about hoteps, which I am not a part of. They got into the topic of black families and the emasculation of black men. I watched the debate and saw how the feminists and the gays, trans, black men pretty much had the loudest voices. They pretty much devaluing the man's role in the relationship and stating that two parents of the same sex is exactly equivalent to the child's balance and upbringing with a man and a woman. They were even talking about how gender isn't real, but that wasn't worse. Was how the black men were silent. They tried to open their mouths, they got shouted over. They allowed themselves to be called misogynistic, and how their masculinity was not needed in society. It pretty much was embracing femininity and feminine values. We cannot have strong communities if our men are afraid to be men and uphold traditional things that make us men and make us great due to fear. How can we change this? So I agreed to them for the most part that's what bothered me more in the video is seeing, even when you got people like Carl and even the hostep dude, they were being pretty diplomatic to me. Like they were being a lot nicer than I could ever be. I wouldn't be in that space. They would have kicked me out a long time ago. But it is interesting how, granted, they're outnumbered. There's a bunch of, leftist leaning thinking people in a room full of, a handful of, I'm not even maybe a handful of unapologetic black men. Like the Hotep dude pretty much is on point sometimes in his commentary. I generally lean to Carl, although I think he's way, as much as he counters the whole PC narrative and this and that, in these conversations he looks like he's very PC, but he's already written off as the Republican Uncle Tom or whatever. But I can give that context to say, like, I understand, like, they're outnumbered. That's not really space for heterosexual unapologetic black men, but it did look like a bunch of weakness. That's not really space for them. But what really bothered me more so, because I deal with people on their philosophy and their ideologies, but if you look at what, even that brother made a valid argument, but I'll get to that later. Even if you look at how, I think on a different video, like every time people make valid arguments or complaints, they're just completely shot down in that space, which is whatever. But I think Carl made the argument simply stating that, like, the civil rights movement, when it came inclusive and when we became mascots for other groups, black folks started to lose out and other groups got to eat. He made arguments about how feminism started with black women and white women joined on and they got what they wanted and they bounced. When you look at the civil rights legislation, that didn't just help black folks, it helped white women, it helped Asian people, it helped mentally ill folks who could all be of the oppressive class and still get the benefits that black men and women were fighting for together. Alright? I don't know who said this, but someone said, like, give me one piece of legislation that has changed or helped black women while being with feminism, right? Because the point was that black men and women who fought together in the civil rights movement, the Housing Discrimination Act and the Voting Rights Act were two things that black women did together that was more beneficial to the black man and the black woman and the black family than anything that feminists have ever done. But I don't know. I just look at it's just a bunch of matriarchy, a bunch of role reversal, a bunch of we want female leadership, we want men to lead. They tell the men that they're not listening to us, but yes, they are listening to you. They just don't agree with what the fuck you're saying. Like, that's just that simple. There is this narrative of you're wrong and I'm right and you need to get on our terms, right? They want you to police people who may identify a part of being Hotep, which only one dude was actually Hotep. So it's like you had people defending the structure of a family between a man and a woman. They had men defending the term of being emasculated. You had this chick right here talking about, I don't like the term emasculation, yada, yada, yada. For people who like to make up terms and words, cisgender, this and that, intersectionality, take words that don't mean what they mean, misogynoir, mansplaining, that's called being condescending, bitch. I'm saying, like, people who like to make up words, you don't like the term emasculating because, like, how can you take that away from somebody, yada, yada. I'm like, even the host of the show, which I've usually given the benefit of the doubt, but she's just as backwards and feminist and moist promoting as the rest of the women on the show. But she gonna say, like, well, a man being great, that's not attacking his masculinity, that's attacking his femininity. I'm like, first of all, Chuck, you're not a man, so how can you declare what that is attacking on a man? Like, you're not a man, right? So when the slave owner was raping the man in front of his wife or his woman and child, and she no longer desired him, I'm sure that attacked his masculinity. Alright? Not his. I don't think he was thinking about his humanity at the time. His wife and kids don't respect him and don't look up to him anymore. I'm sure that hurt his masculinity. Likewise, the conversation was about prison rape, and I'm sure when someone's taking that from you and doing that to you, they're attacking your masculinity. Right? But again, you got people who have their own definitions and their own rules and stuff, things of that nature. So it's like, how do you convey that in that space? But again, the one, not even get on that dude. You know, the one chick who was just like her, again, crying about female leadership and not being, I want to lead and I want this and I can't respect this idea and I don't like the patriarchy. And I'm like, but y'all the ones that was complaining about validation in one video, complaining about black men need to go out of their way to prove that they're not like other men and show black women this and that. Everybody loved this dude and the other dude Mouse's commentary. Mouse gets up and yells, and you know, it's funny too how you get to see the biasness in the room when him or Mouse or the one other black chick, or when they get frustrated or mad and they want to cuss and go off, they're given space to do that. But the Hotep dude or Carl, they get a little heated. They should get, you know, stopped short. They get attacked. They get threatened to get thrown out. Like, it's just interesting how even in that space it's supposed to be open and a dialogue of different ideas and perspectives, you can clearly see the bias in that room. But just an example, Carl stated in the video that you know, how much of your reality do I have to make real? And Donovan's response was, you know, privilege, right? Everybody's mad about Charlamagne's book title, which I'll probably discuss later, but they're mad at the title Black Privilege or whatever. But it's funny how if you're in a room like this and you simply saying, like, you know what, you can do what you want to do. This is America. I don't co-sign this shit though. And I'm not calling you, I'm not changing my preferences, these and cisgender, this and that. And then you got people, oh, that's a privileged person thing. Like, oh, what privilege? Where's that? Like, I'm privileged because I'm saying I simply disagree with your worldview. And Donovan has the mitigated gall to speak like Stephen A. Smith, to say to Carl and the other brother, because that conversation was more about basically the one sister got triggered, right? Because they were pretty much saying, like, yo, if we're going to be accepting of men who pretend to be women and participate in that reality, then how can we reject a person who identifies as a different race? And the one chick right there, she got triggered quick as hell, talking about y'all black men defending this white hoe and this and that in regards to Rachel Dolezal. Even though that's how insecure this chick is, it ain't got nothing to do with Rachel Dolezal. It's anybody who does that. But if you're telling people that race and gender are social constructs, they're made up, they're not real, then how the fuck can I, me myself personally, I think both of y'all are crazy and got some screws loose. Whether it's a person pretending to be a gender that they're not, or a person that pretending to be a race that they're not. Like, I'm go that far with that. But if these are men telling you that, yeah, we do agree and we do think that this is a real thing, then we can't separate the two. And they because this shit is, again, it's all made up and they just go with what they want as they go. They're making it up as they go. They formulated some bullshit argument on how, no, it's not the same thing and yada yada yada. Like, it's the same thing. You're picking and choosing what you want to be or what you want to identify as. And it's that simple. But it's interesting how, you know, they're inclusive of that, of the emasculation of black men or promoting homosexuality, but when something might affect them as women, oh no, I don't want you relaying a white woman to be black. And that whole conversation is funny too, because they had an issue with Chipamanda, who's unapologetic and forceful in her words, right? I'll probably do a video about that specific conversation. But they had an issue with her because of her unapologeticness, but she simply stated that a trans woman is not a woman. And y'all didn't like that. Y'all didn't like that she said it and she's unapologetic about it. That's what really bothers y'all more than that. But y'all love her when she's debating some white dude about white supremacy and racism, though. But it's interesting how she's making the same argument. Like, don't give Laverne Cox or whatever his name is, the gender dude, Woman of the Year or Best this to that. That's an attack on actual women. The same way you can say Rachel Dolezal, you getting, as they called it, caping from black men. It's the same thing. Like, so you're comfortable with a man being a woman and getting shine and recognition that you should get. I think when they gave Laverne Cox the first beautiful woman in the world, that was a slap in your face as a black woman. But you're saying that's okay because you promoting this bizarre world of ideology, but you're more upset that Rachel Dolezal chooses to identify as black, and black people are saying we don't care. It's not hurting us. That's what she wants to be on, right? I just don't get that. But the other chick too was talking about, you know, I hate patriarchy. I hate patriarchy is what she called it, but they crying for validation and promotion. What's the standard? They want, and they love the dude Mouse who screamed and yelled and the black women did this and gay black women did that and they're in the forefront. And I'm like, nigga, tell the whole story. Alright? First of all, it's funny how they're bragging about being on the street and protesting things of that nature, and that was one of the criticisms of the civil rights movement, is black men who were getting hosed down and dogs sticked on them. They didn't want their women out there too as a measure of protection, right? They didn't want you in that harm's way, right? But then, like, how does that work? If they let you come and then you get hurt, then what? Then that makes us look like bitch asses too, right? But it's funny how the Simone 5-6s and the Kirsten Carazins and the Brooklyn Blues and all that, they use the examples of y'all being out there as a form of weakness for black men for letting you be out there or not protecting you in the first place. But you can't, first of all, if I didn't ask you to do something, you can't use it as a trump card against me. If I didn't ask you to be on the street protesting for me, you can't turn around and tell me, well, we're doing this for you. Like, I didn't ask you to. I actually prefer you be at home, not out in the street, not getting tear gas, not getting beat by cops. That doesn't make sense to me. I look at even a female YouTube subscriber that I like her content and I subscribe to her, but she was in St. Louis with her husband, and I'm like, and she talked about getting gas and stuff like that. I'm like, why the fuck were you out there? Like, your husband could be out there, but why were you out there, who has a son at home waiting on you to come back? Like, that didn't make any sense to me. But it's just a bunch of confusion, man. Like, it's like, reality, again, I don't get upset about people being on things they're on. I let people stay in the lane that they're in, and I accept people for who they are. That's what you're on, that's what you're on. But it's just interesting to me how there's this arrogance and condescending of anybody who disagrees with their worldview, right? Donovan straight up said, I won't follow you, you can't lead me, you're on the wrong side of history, you can't be in my social circles if you believe a different ideology than what I believe in, which is whatever. But then, why is it that when men say, well, I don't subscribe to female leadership, I don't concern myself or care about homosexuality, I'm not fighting for gay or trans rights, yada yada yada, then they're the homophobics, they're the sexists, they're misogynists. Why not just acknowledge that we just simply disagree and we don't have the same philosophy and move on from there, right? Y'all trying to make something happen that's just not gonna happen. You have to acknowledge that some folks just don't co-sign that shit. Everything that is like every, you know, argument that's presented that is valid. Like even the one brother stated how Bay Arthur Ruther stated that, you know, civil rights is no longer about civil rights, it's about homosexuality and gender, which is you can like take that back to my video I did about the suggestion that Obsidian made and the decline that O.C. Drew Jackson made, basically saying how, you know, when people come into certain movements, they tend to usurp the movement, and feminist ideology and homosexual, whatever you want to call it, agendas took over black identity politics. And I mean, that's clear. Yet, and that was a valid argument, but it got shot down in that space because they don't want to hear any other truths. One of the chicks, again, I said, she talked about, you know, and being emasculated and things of that nature. How you're trying to tell a man how he feels about a certain situation. For example, remember when the Baltimore mom was beating the shit out of her son? You know, she was beating him in public to protect him from the police. That she's going to call on him when he no longer wants to get his ass beat by her anymore, right? And all the men are saying like, yo, that's emasculating. That's not cool. That's not good for self-esteem. That's not good for, you know, that's embarrassing in public. He's gonna have to deal with that shit amongst other men, other boys. Like, it doesn't just stop there. Her doing that on TV, whatever. Obviously, that's not the first time. Like, that shit, you know, you wonder why some of these men turn toxic, or as they call it, toxic masculinity and all this other bullshit. Some of that is why. And again, what a brother on the show told you, yo, I grew up in a household full of estrogen. I felt like something was missing, something was off. I needed to be around that male positive identity. Oh, what's wrong with being feminine? What's wrong with being like, yo? He's telling you it bothered him, it affected him, right? It doesn't make sense that when we offer valid arguments, the shit completely get shut out. Like, there's no, you're telling the men that they're not listening, but y'all not listening to them. But that's just my rant. The video is what it is. You watch it, listen to it, make your own conclusions. This is not a space for heterosexual black men. Y'all wonder why you get so many extremes and the MGTOWs and the men going their own way and the MRAs and shit like that, but y'all don't facilitate a space where men could be unapologetic themselves, right? And I wish men would understand, like, this is what women are on. This is their complaints. Despite all of that, you have to ignore all that shit and do what you gotta do. That's just plain and simple. They're gonna complain, they're gonna bitch, they're gonna moan, they're gonna attack you, they're gonna threaten you, they're gonna boycott you for being unapologetically you, right? And you have to continue to be you regardless of that, though. Acknowledge people for where they are, deal with them where they're at. Stop trying to change people's minds, because it's just not gonna happen. It's either by now they know or they don't. But be strong in who you are, because this world does not have a space for us. Like, I just think of so many times where, like, the littlest critique can get blowed out into you hate black women. But I remember when, I think it was the Nightly Show, and you had all them brothers on the show, and they asked the bald head dude Larry asked them to say something about black women that was them being honest and open, and none of the men responded. Even the gay black dude, they all was just like quiet and they wouldn't respond, they wouldn't answer that question. They all bitched out. But we've seen the same panel of black women have no problem critiquing, giving criticism, or saying what they don't like about black men. Why is that? At a national level, you don't see that. These black men fear boycotts, they fear the articles from the Twitter fingers and whatnot, but they won't respond. They'll be quiet and be silent. But black women don't have that same silence. They don't have that problem going in front of the camera doing that. That's just my video.